الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان.
Assalamu alaikum, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Revelation Experience. I'm Meraj Mohiuddin. Today we're going to be talking about Surah Al-Falaq. We are getting to the end of this section of the first installment of early Meccan surahs. The next two surahs, this surah, Surah Al-Falaq, and then Surah An-Nas, are two kind of surahs that are always come together. I'll do two separate episodes on them just so that we can maintain one episode for every single surah, but they are very closely related. The context of Surah Al-Falaq is actually quite interesting and actually goes into a question of timing of when this surah was revealed. Many scholars believe this was an early Meccan surah, and the syntax, the way the surah sounds, the grammar, the wording, it sounds like a Meccan surah. What's interesting, however, is that our narrations of when the Prophet peace be upon him actually used this surah appear to come from the late Medinan period. So there's some kind of debate about whether was this a late Medinan surah, like in Quran year 22 or 23, or was this an early Meccan surah, perhaps in Quran years 1, 2, or 3. And this is kind of one of those interesting things where we can't exactly say for sure when the surah came down, but you have to realize it is possible that the surah was revealed in early Mecca, but its application was taught to the Prophet in late Medina, and so that's why we have that story saying, okay, use this surah for what I'm about to describe to you happened to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But he already knew that surah, but Allah is now telling him now's the time to actually use these verses in the application that I'm about to show you. So it is possible that it was revealed in early Mecca and used in late Medina, or some other combination thereof. But the important thing is to discuss what the surah is talking about. And these two surahs are unlike a lot of the other surahs that we have mentioned so far, because these two surahs, our Prophet taught us, are recited for the specific purpose of avoiding all harm and evil in the world. So let's begin with the story of how these surahs came down. Our understanding coming from authentic narrations, so coming from Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, and all the authentic hadith scholars, so people who documented the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they have told us very clearly that there was an incident in which the Prophet, peace be upon him, was suffering from some forgetfulness. He was kind of having lapses in memory, just small kind of things, but they were small enough that it didn't have a really big impact on his day, but big enough in that he did notice them. And so he even told his wife, Sayyidina Aisha, about this and noticed that, I'm having some difficulty, like something just feels a little bit off. This began to trouble him, and he started to suspect that he might be under the spell of some witchcraft. Now, witchcraft is a concept, magic, right? Black magic, dark magic. This is a concept that we don't talk about a lot in today's day and age. And, when I was studying this many years ago, as someone who's just immersed in the science world as a physician, or just in the modern world in general, magic is something that we think of in terms of illusions, David Copperfield kind of stuff. Let me make, this airplane disappear or whatever. Or nowadays, magic is often more in terms of like endurance, weird acts like David Blaine and so forth. But we understand the Islamic notion of magic, which I'm not going to get into in a lot of detail. I'm actually going to give you a link to an incredible series by Sheikh Yasir Qadi on magic. What is magic truly? What is the Islamic concept of magic? But in a nutshell, in Islam, we do believe in magic, the concept of magic, the possibility that humans are able to create evil, cause evil upon others through unseen forces, and specifically through the world of jinn. And jinn are a creation, and I don't know that we've talked about this yet up until this point, but for those of you who are unfamiliar with these terms, we believe that there are different types of creation. Human beings are one form of creation. Angels are another form of creation. A third form of creation is the world of jinn. So we believe that jinn are creatures that we cannot see. but they also inhabit the world, and they also have a free will like human beings. We don't believe angels have free will. They have to obey God in all of his commands. Jinn, however, have the capacity to obey or disobey God. And so in that way, there are many ways they're much like the human race, the race of jinn. We believe that magic is the act of human beings calling upon the world of jinn to create evil in the world against other humans or against whatever they're trying to accomplish. This is a very clear belief in our tradition. Now, for someone of the modern day, it seems kind of hokey, right? Oh, you're telling me your religion, you believe in, voodoo dolls and magic and this and that. Come on, this is the 21st century. Well, the reality of the situation is, yes, we do believe in this stuff. And the fact that science cannot prove this necessarily only shows how limited science can be. And this is a much bigger conversation. And the reason why I'm spending some time on this is because I have a feeling a lot of people might be having the same thoughts that I did. Because when I first read this, I was like, that's interesting. I respect that we believe in that, but really, like magic, like what? I've never really experienced or seen magic in my own life. Well, the reality is, just because science, and looking through everything through a scientific lens, it's actually a very limiting thing to do. And as I've gotten older, I realized that there is a difference between using science and believing in science as a means to understand everything in the world. And it's actually a very limiting thing. In fact, as much as science explains so much of the world to us, there is so much more of the world which science cannot even touch. For example, what is a scientific explanation for why we fall in love? I mean, like one of the most common human experiences, one of the most deep, moving, profound human experiences, science has no capacity and no means of testing theories, hypotheses, and so forth when it comes to really important, meaningful human experiences. And so for that reason, do we just write off everything that science cannot explain and say, oh, that can't be proven? Where's your proof on that? Well, if that's the case, then that means that you also can't prove love. And what kind of world would it be without love? We all recognize that love exists. And yet, just because science can't prove it doesn't mean that we don't throw it away, dismiss it. So that being said, in Islam, we believe in the unseen. And there are many things in the unseen world that we believe in, including angels. We believe in Allah. God is unseen to us. And we also believe in the world of jinn, and we believe in the effect of magic. And so these two surahs are two surahs that are verses to protect us from magic and those forces that cause magic and evil in the world. So here, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, thought that maybe he was under a spell because nothing else could explain these kind of strange, aberrant memory lapses that he was having. Now you have to understand, at that time in Arabia, shamanism, incantations, spells, witchcraft, this was very common at that time, as it has been common throughout the world. So given that this was common at that time, the Prophet is concerned that he might be under a spell. And he, as you can expect, he always turns to Allah whenever he is in any situation, good or bad, challenging or successful. And so he turns to Allah, he falls asleep that night, and he has a dream in which he sees two people who are directing him to a well where he might find the answer to what's been affecting him. And he's also given the instructions that he should recite Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas upon those items of witchcraft. The Prophet, peace be upon him, goes to the well, or in some narrations, he sends some companions to the well. They uncover one of the Prophet's combs and a rope there with some knots on it. And so, as the Prophet was instructed, he unties those knots, and as he's untying those knots, he starts reciting Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas, and then he blows on these knots to break the spell, is what we understand. And we also understand from the story that his comb was actually stolen by a sorcerer by the name of Labid, and had used it to cast a small spell on the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Well, after the Prophet, peace be upon him, discovered the comb and the rope and untied the knots, recited these verses, he soon regained his sense of balance again. He finally felt normal again. The spell had been broken. And this is what we understand from these two surahs, is that these two surahs are used specifically to protect, to guard against evil, and also to eradicate any evil that might come upon us. So let's take a look at what the Prophet, peace be upon him, was told to recite. Surah Al-Falaq, which means the daybreak, it begins, Qul, say, I seek refuge with the Lord of the dawn, Al-Falaq. And here, falaq, falaq typically means like breaking open or splitting apart. And that's what falaq is if you think about it, right? The night is being broken by the day. So here Allah is telling the Prophet to swear by the Rabbil Falaq, the Lord of the daybreak. Okay, and often if you think about daybreak as like kind of the end of the nighttime, which is really usually a time of evil, right? Like usually bad things happen at night. And so it's kind of like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So there's like a feeling of optimism, right? With falaq. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, is told to say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. And then the surah goes on, I seek safety with the Lord of the dawn from the evil of that which he created, and from the evil of darkness when it settles, and from the evil of the blowers on knots, and from the evil of an envier when he envies.
قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد.
Now there's a lot to unpack in this surah, and I'm honestly going to refer you to listen to some of the scholars to go into the details of this. But for now, let me just go through briefly and tell you what we understand is that when Allah is telling us to say, I seek refuge with the Lord of the dawn from the evil in creation, we understand that everything is being created by Allah. But we also understand that this world is so complex, we might not completely be able to understand it. Allah allows for everything to be in creation for some purpose that we don't understand. We see this in many stories in the Qur'an. If you take the example of Surah Al-Kahf, which we will get to, we see that Musa alayhi salam, Moses, he encounters a man named Al-Qidr who knows more than Moses, who knows knowledge of unseen things. And this man, Al-Qidr, is on a journey to right certain wrongs, right? And those wrongs are evil things that are happening in the world that we understand God has allowed to happen, but they are happening for wisdoms that we can't completely understand. So when it comes to why is there evil in the world, this is a really big philosophical topic, and we hopefully will get to that when we get to the story of Adum again, when we do a different series. But in this, understand that yes, we understand that God is the creator of everything. At the same time, however, we always seek refuge with God from the evil that is around us. Now, we are told we seek evil from the approaching darkness. And we do understand that generally speaking, evil things tend to happen at night, right? Crime tends to happen more at night. Adultery tends to happen more at night. Most things where people are creeping and crawling around, burglars, robbers, and so forth, usually it's the nighttime, right? That's why, you don't want your kids to stay out late at night. You want them to come home because you don't know who's driving drunk and so forth. It's just a lot of badness is happening at nighttime. And that's why Al-Falaq, the dawn, is a better time than the nighttime. So then the surah goes on, from the evil of those who blow in knots. What this is referring to is basically sorcery. This is one type of sorcery that was understood in Arabia at the time, that, the sorcerers would, take some kind of object that was owned by the person they're trying to cast a spell on. They steal it or something like that. And then they'll take that object and they'll kind of tie knots on it and so forth. And it's just kind of, strange kind of like sorcery, magical practices that we do believe in. The Qur'an is saying this happens because it is telling us to seek refuge from these things. And this is one example of a type of magic, is the type of magic of those who blow. They'll recite some phrase and then they'll blow onto the knots. In the same way that the Prophet peace be upon him told us to recite phrases of protection, like Ayat al-Kursi, which is in Surah al-Baqarah, or Surah al-Falaq, or Surah al-Nas, to recite these and then follow the sunnah of the Prophet, where we then blow into our hands and then we wipe our hands over our body as a form of protection. So we also do that as Muslims. We also blow and then we wipe it on ourselves. In the opposite way, people on the dark side, right? People who are calling on dark magic and so forth, they also have their sayings, which they recite and then they blow also, right? And this is to access the power of the jinn as we understand it. So Allah is saying that we seek refuge from those people as well. And then probably the one that is the most relevant to what most of you are experiencing right now is seeking refuge from the evil of an envier when he envies. The word here is hasad, right? وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. Hasad is a interesting word. It implies a jealousy, but it's actually more than jealousy. It's like a nastiness where if someone has something, you're like, why do they have it? I should have this. So it's not just wanting something that someone else has, right? That's the basic jealousy. Basic jealousy is like, if someone has a nice car, you're like, I wish I could have that car. You're not wishing bad on the other person. You just kind of want the same thing for yourself. And technically, that's not what hasad is. Hasad is like, who are they to get this? How come they are speaking and I wasn't invited to speak, right? How come they got the promotion and I didn't get the promotion? I deserve that promotion. Don't they realize how much smarter I am than them? I wish they get fired from that, right? That's like hasad. That's like burning envy, right? And we understand that burning envy can actually have very negative consequences for the person who has it. Obviously, it's a sin. Hasad is considered one of the greatest sins. Hasad and kibr, these are two big sins. So envy and arrogance, very big sins, right? And interestingly enough, there's a very good lecture by Sheikh Yasir Qadhi on this. He talks about the fact that, envy, this is what brought Shaitan down, Iblis, Satan down, is that he envied Adam. Why are we bowing down to him? He's made of mud. I'm made of fire. So there's this level of arrogance and envy, right? And we also see envy play out in the story of Cain and Abel, which I'm not going to go into now, but basically Cain was envious of Abel, so he killed him. So this hasad, right, this burning nastiness, it actually makes people do crazy things. And in some cases, they actually kill their own siblings, as we see in the story of Cain and Abel. So hasad is a very nasty thing, and I wanted to spend an extra few minutes on that as opposed to magic. I don't think many of you are involved in the dark arts. I hope not. But hasad is something that we all are susceptible to. Not only us having hasad for other people, which we should, if we do, we got to work on that to get rid of that, because it's not a desirable trait to have, and it's something that we will be held accountable for. But also, this is a dua, a prayer against people who envy us. Because we also understand in our tradition that those who envy us, just through their envy alone, without having to cast spells or anything like that, their envy alone can have negative impacts upon us, right? We believe in this stuff. We believe in the evil eye and so forth. This is in the Qur'an. It's not like some weak hadith. Ayn is in the Qur'an. We believe in this. And so we are seeing here, and Surah Al-Falaq is speaking to this clearly, we want to be protected from people who are envying us, which is why, and in this day and age, it's like surprising to me how much people share about their good fortune, which is why, if you truly care about yourself and your family's well-being, you're not going to go around and tell everyone like, we had this amazing vacation and look at these photos of us and look, I just bought a new car, everybody. What do you think of this new, XYZ? And I just got this big promotion. I beat 7 people out to get it. And the way in modern culture we, promote only the best parts of our life and we hide all the difficult parts of our life. This is, what social media is all about. All that is doing is just inviting hasad into your life. And so a Muslim who is believing in Allah and understands the true nature of the seen world and the unseen world, the last thing that you would want is to draw attention upon you. The last thing you would want is to draw envy or hasad upon you, the evil eye upon you. And for that reason, as Muslims, we don't share like all of like our biggest successes and forth. We stay quiet, stay modest, say alhamdulillah, accept God's favor, but you don't have to like rub it in other people's faces, because you're just asking for, it's like entrapping people who are just minding their own business, and now you're shoving in their face, look at this yacht that I went on vacation on. You're just asking for it. You know, you're trying to get people to get annoyed with you. And that's not part of our tradition. So that's something that, you know, we should certainly stay away from. I'll just add an interesting thing that I learned about hasad just the other day. I was listening to a lecture by Sheikh Yasir Qadi, and he was talking about Surah Al-Yusuf. And in the story of Joseph, there is a scene, and again, we will get to all this stuff, but for those of you who are familiar with it, there is the story of Joseph where Joseph is now kind of in charge of the granaries in Egypt, and his brothers, who were trying to have him killed earlier in his life, are now going with all of their wealth in their caravan to Egypt to trade it in for some food. And before they leave, Joseph's father and the father of these brothers, who is Jacob, peace be upon him, Yaqub alayhi salam, he actually instructs his sons not to enter the city from one gate, but to spread out and enter from several different gates. Like maybe a couple sons come from one gate, another couple sons come from the other gate, and so forth. And in doing so, what I understood is that Yaqub alayhi salam is actually trying to avoid hasad, envy, by this big caravan going through together and everyone seeing these people, wow, look how much they have, and so forth. That brings on envy. And so what I understood from listening to Shaykh Yasir Qadi is that this was an example of how Yaqub alayhi salam was also trying to avoid hasad, also trying not to display all of the riches and the belongings of the family, because that would bring envy onto the family. So that is just a very brief overview of Surah Al-Falaq. In the next episode, we'll talk about Surah Al-Nas. It'll be basically the same kind of conversation, talking about the avoidance against black magic, asking for Allah's protection against these evil forces that we certainly believe in. And so we'll talk about that in the next episode. For now, I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I will send links down below also for Sheikh Yasir Qadi's detailed series on jinn and magic, this idea of sihr. Meanwhile, I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode. Insha'Allah, I will see you guys soon. Assalamu alaikum.
إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا فلا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون أولئك أصحاب الجنة خالدين فيها جزاء بما كانوا يعملون.